The film begins by introducing a couple who are about to break up. At that time, there's this woman named Iny Young, and she's wondering why her boyfriend Chan-hee decided to end things. Chan-hee is really sad about it because they've been together for 8 long years. Turns out, Chan-hee's reason for breaking up is because he got a big opportunity to study abroad on a full scholarship. He doesn't want his dreams to be messed up by their relationship. Iny Young tried to convince him that they could make it work long distance, since he'd only be gone for a year. But Chan-hee still decides to end things because he wants to give his full attention to his dreams. And then, out of nowhere, it starts raining, marking the end of their relationship. A year later, Iny Young is living her life, and she's trying her best to keep smiling. It wasn't easy for her to deal with the breakup after being together for 8 years. She puts on a happy face, but deep down, her heart still aches. Moving on and letting others into her heart is something she hasn't managed to do yet. One day, Iny Young went to her college friend's bachelorette party. She sat at the same table as her best friend, So-hye. Now, unlike Iny Young, So-hye falls in love easily. It seems like she has a new crush almost every day. If her feelings aren't returned, she gets a bit confused for a while but then moves on to a new love. When the topic of marriage comes up, So-hye gets all excited and really wants to tie the knot. But Iny Young, who's been through a lot, decides that marriage isn't for her. She believes that being single is absolutely fine in today's world. You see, Chan-hee, her ex, had once promised Iny Young that they'd date for 10 years before getting married. Well, turns out it was all just empty words. They broke up after only 8 years, and that's what's making her skeptical about marriage. Then, after So-hye had left and gone home, Iny Young was eavesdropping on her college friends' chit-chat. They were gossiping about a guy named Yoon-soo, who had come back to college after taking a year off. At that time, her friends thought he was pretty shameless for showing up at the bachelorette party, especially given all the rumors that were floating around about him. Apparently, Yoon-soo had a bad reputation just before he took his break. Iny Young, watching Yoon-soo being isolated like that, couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for him. When Iny Young headed home, she was carrying her paper bag. But then, Yoon-soo came up to her and got all mixed up, thinking her bag was his. Remembering how the other students had given Yoon-soo a cold shoulder at the party, Iny Young told him not to go back there. Then, they went somewhere else and had a drink together. However, even when Iny Young was telling her story with a smile, Yoon-soo could see that there was pain hiding behind it. He asked if it had been a tough day for her, just like it had been for him. Yoon-soo understood that Iny Young was going through a rough time too. Hearing that, Iny Young fell silent. It was the first time she felt someone's understanding, not just their sympathy. Iny Young then opened up to Yoon-soo, revealing that apart from the heartache from her love life, she was also hurt by people feeling sorry for her. She really didn't want anyone's pity. The tears rolling down her cheeks were evidence of the pain she was carrying inside. In that moment, even when Iny Young had her own inner troubles, Yoon-soo was going through a lot too. Everyone at their college was saying bad things about him. They thought he got a scholarship because of his parents. But that was not true at all. Yoon-soo worked hard for that scholarship. And the surprising thing is he didn't even have parents. Sadly, the rumors became so bad that he lost the scholarship and left college for a while. That night, both of them, feeling upset, met. After drinking too much, they got really close. The next morning, Iny Young was shocked to see Yoon-soo beside her. Wondering why she let things go too far with someone she hardly knew, she left in a hurry. Back at college, she shared the story with her friend So-hye. She felt so awkward about it, and because of the alcohol, she couldn't even remember much. But So-hye wasn't upset about the incident. She was more annoyed that Iny Young couldn't remember the details of their night together. After hearing Iny Young's story, So-hye shared that she was in love again. She had feelings for a guy she met at church. Iny Young couldn't help but think how quickly So-hye falls for someone. Now, because of what happened between her and Yoon-soo, Iny Young was doing her best to avoid him. She felt so awkward around him. One time, while trying to hide from him, Yoon-soo saw Iny Young and asked if she was avoiding him because of that night. She told him it wasn't because she didn't enjoy it, but because she was embarrassed. Then, feeling unsure, she walked away. Later, when Iny Young got back to her house, she found a stranger there. The stranger claimed the house was his. Confused, they both went to the police station. At the station, they discovered they weren't the only ones with this problem. Many people had been tricked, and their homes were sold without their knowledge. Because of this scam, Iny Young found out she no longer had her home. The police said they needed some time to figure everything out. Now Iny Young was in a tough spot. She didn't have any money for a place to stay, so she thought of her friend and decided to stay at So-hye's house. So-hye's family was super kind. They treated Iny Young just like one of their own. At that time, the family dinners were a mix of laughter and little arguments, with parents, grandparents, and siblings all around. It was both heartwarming and a little crazy, and it made Iny Young smile, even if she felt a bit overwhelmed. She was grateful to So-Hi and her family for taking her in, but Iny Young kept thinking about how to get money to buy her own house. Being a single student, she didn't have many options. Then So-Hi had a wild idea. She told Iny Young she should get married because the bank was more willing to give loans to newlyweds. This idea seemed really out there for her. She wasn't even thinking about dating, let alone getting married. The next day, Iny Young was thrilled about her new internship at an art museum. Her first big task is to organize an art exhibition for an illustrator named Rose. And here's the thing, Iny Young absolutely loved Rose's work. The thought of meeting her art idol in person made her super excited. At that time, Rose, a talented artist from Korea who studied overseas, was making waves in the art world. The museum set up a meeting with Rose, and Park Gyu, a co-worker, asked Iny Young to come along. But when Iny Young walked into that cafe, she got the shock of her life. Rose wasn't just any artist. It was Chan-Hee, her ex-boyfriend, now a big-time illustrator. For a moment, she imagined herself tossing water in his face, but that was just a daydream. In reality, she kept her cool, acting all professional like they were strangers. Back at the office, Iny Young was so upset, she took down and threw away all of Rose's art that she put up on her desk. It was tough to find out that the artist she admired so much was her ex. And now, she had to work with him until the exhibition was over. She was so frustrated and thought about quitting. But her friend, So-Hi, reminded her not to run away from challenges. The next day, Iny Young, Park Gyu, and Chan-Hee visited a studio they were planning to use for the exhibition. There, they chatted about the setup and what they needed to get everything ready. But Park Gyu had something come up and had to leave, leaving Iny Young and Chan-Hee by themselves. That's when Chan-Hee asked how she's been, which caught Iny Young off guard. Chan-Hee took this moment to say sorry for the things he did wrong in the past. Instead of feeling comforted, Iny Young was frustrated. She told him to just focus on work and not bring up personal stuff. But Chan-Hee seemed genuinely sorry. It got too much for Iny Young, and she left the studio with tears in her eyes. Yoon-soo happened to see all this from outside. Later, Iny Young was mad at herself for not standing strong in front of Chan-Hee. She wanted him to see she was doing just fine, even after they broke up. She even thought of showing off a new boyfriend to prove she had moved on. But when facing Chan-Hee, all her feelings came rushing back and she couldn't hide them. The following day, Iny Young was brainstorming ways to buy her own house. She felt uneasy staying with So-Hi's family for much longer. So she had an idea to get married, but not for real love or anything. She thought of a plan to have a contract marriage just to get a loan for newlyweds to buy a home. So she put up a poster asking if any man was up for this deal. Soon after, Yoon-soo, who saw the poster, offered himself as the potential husband. Hearing that, Iny Young was hesitant at first. The idea of living with Yoon-soo brought back memories of a night they shared, and she was still pretty embarrassed about it. Yoon-soo, however, tried to persuade her. He told her they both needed this arrangement for their own reasons. At that time, Iny Young got curious and asked him why he wanted this marriage. Yoon-soo kept quiet, not revealing much. Unbeknownst to Iny Young, Yoon-soo saw this as a chance for revenge. The reason is for Chan-Hee because he was the one who got the scholarship Yoon-soo had aimed for a year ago. But Yoon-soo kept his intentions a secret to protect Iny Young's feelings. After talking about it, they made it official and registered their marriage at the office. They even took some pictures to remember the day. Soon after, they got a house and started living together. Iny Young's room was cozy and inviting, while Yoon-soo's felt cold and formal. The common areas like the bathroom and fridge is mostly filled with Iny Young's stuff. Yoon-soo wasn't too happy about that, so he teased Iny Young about making a written agreement for their marriage. Then, they wrote down some rules in this marriage contract. They promised not to bother each other too much, share spaces equally, and not to fall for each other. Also, no guests allowed. And if one wanted out, the other had to agree. Both of them signed this paper very seriously. One day, Iny Young tried again to ask Yoon-soo why he married her. But Yoon-soo kept his lips sealed and just headed to bed. Feeling a bit down, she called So-Hi. They had a heart-to-heart chat, lifting each other's spirits. So-Hi had some news too that she started working in a cafe. She was learning a lot, especially from a talented barista there. But one day, a customer named Min Chang walked in, and it was like love at first sight for So-Hi. She was so smitten that she completely forgot about her past crushes, including the kind barista she was learning from. For a few days, Iny Young and Yoon-soo had been in a pretend marriage. Their daily routines were pretty simple. Iny Young often overslept, so she quickly washed her hair and whip up breakfast. Yoon-soo, on the other hand, was an early bird, making toast with jam and savoring it in peace. One thing that got on his nerves was Iny Young's habit of leaving dirty dishes. She promised she'd take care of them later. Now, over at her workplace, Iny Young got some exciting news. Her colleague, Park Yu, invited her for an outdoor assignment. She was thrilled since it was her first, but her excitement was short-lived. At that time, he wanted her to interview Chan-hee, and this had to be done before an upcoming exhibition. During the interview, Park Yu asked Iny Young to pose a question. She professionally asked Chan-hee why he chose to display only 10 illustrations at his debut show. He explained that those works were from a pivotal year in his life. Then Iny Young responded with a hint of sarcasm, suggesting that year must have been really memorable for him. She even told Chan-hee he should probably go overseas after his exhibition. That left him lost for words. Soon after, he quickly changed the topic, stating he'd stay around. Later that day, Iny Young returned home, clearly having had a bit too much to drink. She playfully teased Yoon-soo and even gave his cheeks a pinch. She tried to keep her promise about the dishes, but was too wobbly on her feet. Yoon-soo, seeing her struggle, told her to just deal with it tomorrow. The next day was chaos at work. Park Yu had a mini meltdown because he forgot to snap pictures of Chan-hee's studio. On top of that, there was a surprise meeting coming up, so he turned to Iny Young, asking her to handle a photo task. At that time, she wasn't thrilled, but she headed over to the studio, aiming to get it done quickly. While she was there, she spotted Chan-hee looking really unwell. Despite her mixed feelings towards him, she couldn't help but ask if he was okay. Instead of explaining, Chan-hee admitted he'd been feeling off for the past year. He expressed regret for leaving Iny Young to chase his dreams and how tough his days had been since. He hoped she could be mad at him, but not hate him. His honesty caught Iny Young off guard, stirring some emotions. She didn't say anything, just walked away. Back at the house, Yoon-soo was washing dishes, mumbling to himself. He was pretty miffed that Iny Young hadn't done them. He planned to give her an earful once she was back. But when she walked in, looking downcast, Yoon-soo's irritation melted away. Instead, he gently held her hand, showing he was there for her. Once she felt a bit better, Iny Young admitted something surprising. She, who'd always been so angry at Chan-hee, was now feeling unsure about her feelings. Hearing that, Yoon-soo was quick to remind her of all the wrong things Chan-hee had done to her in the past, hinting he might hurt her again. Iny Young even asked Yoon-soo to give her a reality check if she ever felt this way again. Later on, after a work meeting, Chan-hee asked both Park Yu and Iny Young to grab lunch. But with Park Yu being busy, Iny Young went on her own. During the meal, Chan-hee got some extra chili, knowing she loved it. After lunch, he even asked her out for dinner. Iny Young, still feeling a bit mixed up, said yes. That evening, seeing it was about to pour, Yoon-soo decided to bring an umbrella to Iny Young's office. There, they chatted outside when Park Yu and Chan-hee walked out and spotted them. Park Yu, not knowing any better, wondered aloud who Yoon-soo was. Caught off guard and wanting to get a rise out of Chan-hee, Yoon-soo wrapped his arm around Iny Young and announced he was her husband. Both Park Yu and Chan-hee were dumbfounded, having no clue Iny Young was married. To really drive the point home, Yoon-soo invited everyone from the office, including Chan-hee, over for a housewarming party. This news crushed Chan-hee. As the party day arrived, the two hustled to make their place seem more lived in, even setting up a shared bedroom to keep their secret. Iny Young was miffed that Yoon-soo had broken their contract by inviting colleagues over. And since neither was any good in the kitchen, they roped in So Hi to help out. In no time, she had a spread of yummy dishes ready, and she was all excited, expecting some drama at the party. However, at that time, Park Yu and Chan-hee were the only ones who showed up at Iny Young's place, as the rest of their co-workers were busy. Things were a bit tense and awkward, so to break the ice, Park Yu suggested a truth game. If you didn't answer a question honestly, you'd have to take a shot of soju. When Chan-hee asked Iny Young if she was genuinely happy, she confidently said she was. Then Park Yu curiously asked Yoon-soo what he found special about Iny Young. Not wanting Yoon-soo to spill any secrets, and knowing he's a lightweight with drinks, Iny Young took a shot on his behalf, explaining that Yoon-soo would get too flushed if he drank. In the middle of the party, Chan-hee stepped out for a call from a pal who spilled the beans that Iny Young and Yoon-soo were in a pretend marriage. Realizing their whole act, Chan-hee came back in, playing it cool, acting like he knew nothing. Soon after, Yoon-soo turned the tables and asked Chan-hee if he felt any regrets. Instead of answering, Chan-hee just took a drink. When Chan-hee put Yoon-soo and Iny Young on the spot by asking about their relationship, Yoon-soo's response was simple and direct. He kissed Iny Young. That was his answer. After the night wound down and the guests left, A tipsy Iny Young got a lift to her room from Yoon-soo. In a moment of vulnerability, she asked him if he had feelings for her. To her surprise, he openly admitted he did. This confession threw them both off balance the next day. Iny Young was lost in thought at work, replaying the moment in her mind. Yoon-soo, on the other hand, was kicking himself at home, wondering why he admitted his feelings so openly. To break the tension, Yoon-soo proposed a shopping trip. Their supermarket adventure was filled with shy smiles and shared glances. Despite their awkwardness, there was a budding romance in the air. After shopping, they cooked and shared a meal, even cleaning up together. But the atmosphere remained thick with unspoken feelings. At that time, Iny Young was the only one aware of Yoon-soo's feelings for her. But Yoon-soo wanted to know if she felt the same. When she shyly admitted she did, he couldn't help but pull her into a kiss. Their connection deepened that night. Meanwhile, as their love story unfolded, Chan-hee was struggling, focusing on completing his last artwork. Elsewhere, So-hai had a chance encounter with Min-chang. He was on a mission to find an injured cat. Spotting an opportunity, So-hai pretended to be a cat lover to bond with him. Together, they handed out posters, hoping to find the missing cat. So-hai used this time together to grow closer to Min-chang. As days passed, the buzz around the upcoming art exhibition grew. Park Yu couldn't stop praising Chan-hee's latest masterpiece. He thought it was so good that he even urged Iny Young to see it for herself. At night, Iny Young visited the art gallery and was taken aback by what she saw. There were 10 illustrations by Chan-hee, and she could recognize their shared memories in 9 of them. They depicted their journey, from the early days of flirting, their romantic dates, and the challenges they faced together. But the last painting really hit her hard. It showed a scene that never happened, with both of them sharing a kiss on the day they ended things. It was clear to Iny Young that this artwork captured Chan-hee's deep regret, wishing that instead of breaking up, they had shared that intimate moment. The following day, the gallery was buzzing with visitors, all admiring Chan-hee's expressive work. There, Iny Young managed her emotions and carried out her duties professionally. But that evening, Chan-hee approached her and apologized. Iny Young, overwhelmed by emotions, confessed how difficult his return had been for her. She wished he'd remained the villain in her story so it would be easier to resent him. Chan-hee, not one to give up, made a bold proposition. He suggested they date for 2 more years and then tie the knot. Heck, he even offered to marry her on the spot if that's what she wanted. He was fully aware that her current marriage to Yoon-soo was just a deal on paper. Urging her to leave Yoon-soo, he promised to be there for her. But Iny Young, with a sense of clarity and certainty, declined. She had found true love in Yoon-soo. At that time, Chan-hee was upset that his proposal got turned down. He wondered if Iny Young knew why Yoon-soo wanted to marry her. Funny enough, Iny Young was also thinking about the same thing. She didn't know either. Just as Chan-hee was about to spill some secrets about Yoon-soo, he appeared and tried to whisk Iny Young away. But she stopped and demanded the truth. Left with no choice, Yoon-soo confessed. He said he only married her to get back at Chan-hee. Iny Young was heartbroken to learn she was just part of a revenge plot. She asked Yoon-soo for a divorce and left him. It was a tough time for all 3 of them. On the flip side, So-hai was in a different world. She was pretending to search for a lost cat with Min-chang, just to be near him. She felt a little down when the cat was finally found because that meant no more excuses to meet up. She admitted to Min-chang that she wasn't really looking out for the cat, but just wanted to be with him. Min-chang was taken by surprise, but he had his own confession. He wished they found the cat sooner so they could hang out at even better places. He wanted to be with So-hai all the time. And just like that, they started dating. After the art exhibition wrapped up, Iny Young's internship at the museum came to an end. She and some of her work buddies decided to grab a bite to eat to say goodbye. At that time, Chan-hee joined them too. During the meal, Iny Young let Chan-hee know that even though she's forgiven him, she can't be with him anymore. She wished him all the best in finding his own happiness. Chan-hee felt a weight lift off his shoulders knowing she had forgiven him. He understood her decision and wanted her to be happy too. All the drama between them was finally settled. Back at his place, Yoon-soo was feeling down. He packed up, thinking of all the times he had shared with Iny Young in that house. Saying goodbye was hard for him. Then he dropped a message to Iny Young telling her he's moved out, hoping she can now have some peace in the home they once shared. Not long after, Iny Young returned home and noticed Yoon-soo's room was empty. It brought back memories of their time together. Seeing their marriage contract and some old photos, it hit her that she was part of the reason their marriage was the way it was. Both of them had used each other, and she felt bad for being so self-centered, especially when she had also leaned on Yoon-soo for things like buying a house. Wanting to set things right, Iny Young reached out to Yoon Soo and found him. She embraced him tightly when they met, suggesting they should end their marriage and maybe start fresh. They shared a deep kiss. Their days moved on, and like a couple, they had their ups and downs. Through all she's been through, Iny Young realized that when one love ends, it's okay to find a new one. Love isn't the only thing that can bring happiness or pain to life. It's important to cherish love to help make life's rough patches a bit smoother. And with that, the film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you want to buy a house, just get into a contract marriage with a stranger and everything will work out in the end.